ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වරට SLT 4G වෙතින් දැන් PO TV නරඹන්න. ඉදිරියටම ගෙන යන SLT 4G.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, locating the culpable. Venerable Gnanasara Thera points to dismissive attitude of former IGP and former president, as well as a network of Arabic schools at the Easter Tax Presidential Commission. Finish line in sight. Sri Lanka enjoys yet another day of low COVID-19 infections and high recoveries. Cut down in prime. The police constable who foiled the National Hospital heist passes away at 22. Compounding tensions. US police guns down another African American. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Sunday, the 14th of June 2020.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then Dikukal pavathina sakura mal suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanayaka. Let's start with your local stories. Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera told the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter Sunday attacks that from all the responsible people he informed of extremist activities in the country, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the only one to summon him and inquire about the matter when he was the Defence Secretary. Giving evidence before the Commission, the Thera also said that there are around 30 Arabic schools in operation in Sri Lanka. Giving evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter Sunday terror attacks of last year, Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera said that there are around 30 Arabic schools in the country with the intervention of former Minister Rashad Brooks, which are funded with Turkish aid. The Thera added that these schools are set up in the areas of Tiharia, Putlam and Mavanella, and their heads espouse extremist ideologies of Ikhwan and Jamaat-e-Islam. He also revealed that two of the suicide bombers involved in these attacks, the Ibrahim brothers, had in fact been educated at such Arabic schools. The Thera went on to say that the first known person to have been involved in ISIS activities in Sri Lanka had also been the principal of an Arabic international school operated in the area of Galevilla. He noted that SM Tawfiq, who was elected to Parliament from Trincomalee, had obtained approval to set up two Arabic schools via private members' bills on the 19th of April in 2013. The Commission questioned the Thera as to whether any information pertaining to the existence of Sharia universities within the country had been uncovered. His response was that in a backdrop where not even a single university in Sri Lanka is given the name of a leader of the country or of a religious leader, a group, including former Eastern Province Governor LAM Hizbullah, constructed a university in Sri Lanka in the name of an Arabic king, Malik Abdullah. He added that this university in question is currently known as the Batiklo campus, and although its owners say that there aren't any Sharia teachings there, they planned on teaching what is known as arts in Sharia Islamic. The witness further noted that an educational institution operated under the name BCAS in the area of Dehiwala by an individual named Abdul Razik had taught extremist ideologies. What's more, the Thera said that former President Maithripala Sirisena, former IGP Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary, current President Gotabaya Rajapaksa were systematically informed in writing of extremist activities in the country which had happened over a period of time. He revealed that former President Sirisena was informed of the matter on 5 occasions and former IGP Jayasundar was informed of the matter on 4 occasions. The witness, however, said that then Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the only person to summon the group, including the Thera, to the Defence Ministry and inquire about the matter. The Thera added that since no responsible individual or government gave any attention to the extremism-related information he uncovered since 2012 to the day of the Easter attacks, he decided to make the public aware on the matter. He went on to say that his name or a photograph of himself cannot be uploaded to Facebook since the previous government had communicated to Facebook that he is a terrorist. Sri Lanka has been recording less and less numbers of daily COVID-19 cases, and today only 5 were confirmed. With that being the case, the country's coronavirus recovery rate also shot up to 68.1%, which is the highest for Sri Lanka since the pandemic broke out. So far, 1,287 persons have recovered from the virus. As the country embraces normalcy a step at a time, its most renowned national park, Yala, will be reopened from tomorrow. That too, however, will be under strict health and safety guidelines. Meanwhile, the curfew will also be shortened by an hour from today, as it will come into effect from midnight.
Sri Lanka has been experiencing a downturn in fresh COVID-19 cases, and even then, the ones which are detected are not from within communities. For around 1.5 months, new cases have been limited to overseas returnees and the Navy cluster. With 35 recoveries being added to the country's overall number today, Sri Lanka's total coronavirus recovery shot up to 1,287, while also boosting the recovery rate to a new high of 68.1%. That also dropped the country's number of active COVID-19 cases to 591. The figure, however, includes 5 infections that were confirmed today, along with 4 persons that tested positive for the novel coronavirus yesterday. All COVID-19 positive cases that were identified today are Navy sailors. From among them, 3 were undergoing quarantine at the Kalpitiya facility, while the remaining were undergoing quarantine at Vidattapalay and Oluvil facilities. In the meantime, 2 persons from the 4 who tested positive for the virus yesterday are returnees from Kuwait who were undergoing quarantine at the Ampara facility. 1 out of the remaining 2 is a returnee from Chennai undergoing quarantine at the Katukeliava facility, and the other is a Navy sailor who had been undergoing quarantine at the Mullaitivu facility. So far to date, a total of 891 naval personnel have tested positive for COVID-19 since a Navy sailor was first diagnosed with the virus on the 22nd of April. However, a total of 679 naval personnel have recovered from the virus, with 203 still under treatment. In other developments, 24 returnees from Chennai who successfully completed 28 days of quarantine at the Katukeliava facility were sent home today. Meanwhile, the Yala National Park that was closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic will reopen tomorrow under strict health and safety guidelines. Under the prevailing situation, only 150 safari jeeps will be permitted to enter the park, while only a total of 5 persons will be allowed to travel in one jeep. However, for tourists that book their tickets online and arrive in their own vehicles can enter the park without any restrictions.
සෞඛ්‍ය අංශවල පොලිස් දැඩි ලෙස අනුගමනය කරමින් තමයි මෙම ධ්‍යාන විවෘත කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ තුල අපි සපාරි ජිප් එකක සංචාරකයන් 5 දෙනෙකුට සීමා කරනවා. ඊළඟට දුරස්ථභාවයේ ටිකට් කවුන්ටර් වලදී මීටරේ පවත්වා ගන්න ඕන. සියලුම සංචාරකයන් සහ එන සියලුම පුජ්‍යලයන් මුඛාවරණ පළඳින්න ඕන. ඒ වගේම අපි උද්‍යානට ඇතුළු වන සියලුම සංචාරකයෙක්ගේ අපි උෂ්ණත්වය පරීක්ෂා කරනවා. මේ අනුව තමයි අපි කටයුතු කරන්නේ. ඒ වගේම කිසිදු සංචාරක මඟ පෙන්වන්නෙක් අපි ලබා දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද මහජන දුරස්ථභාවය තබා ගන්න ඕන නිසා සහ නිලධාරීන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාවටත් එක්ක අපිට උපදෙස් ලැබිලා තියෙන එහෙම තමයි. ඒ අනුව සපාරි ජිප් ප්‍රියදුරන්ට අපි මීට ප්‍රථම දැනුවත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අය පුහුණු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අනුව උද්‍යානයේ නීති රීති අකුරටම පිළිපදිනවා කියලා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ සම්බන්ධව විමර්ශනය සඳහා ජංගම රථ සහ නිලධාරීන් තැන් තැන්වල ස්ථානගත කරලා තියෙනවා.
In the meantime, the curfew will come into effect at midnight today, an hour later than what was observed over the past days. Accordingly, the curfew will be imposed at 12 a.m. and will be lifted at 4 a.m. on a daily basis until further notice. The government, however, urged members of the public to continue to adhere to the health and safety guidelines.
කොරෝනා වෛරසය පැතිරීම වළක්වන්න සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න.
Now, cybersecurity professional Asela Vaidyalankara calls to expedite the passing of a cybersecurity bill once the general election concludes in order to tackle the ever-evolving issues in cyberspace. Speaking to Indivari Amuatha on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Vaidyalankara laid out the reasons as to why networks outside a corporate setting are susceptible for data infringements.
In February, March, April, during this time we've noticed a significant breach to data privacy, but one may assume that this is not possible because most of us were at home. Why is the difference when you work from home? How come your privacy is breached?
This is not only a local trend, we've seen the global trend as well, where attacks along any surface or any cyber attacks have seen a 100-fold, 200-fold increase, primarily because people were practicing social distancing and governments were enforcing that people work from home. What happens actually is, outside a corporate setting, the network is less secure because you are using your own data or your own broadband to connect to a corporate network. Sometimes within that corporate network there might be very sensitive information, and yet the security of your line or the broadband is compromised in various levels. And also don't forget that versus a corporate workstation, maybe your private workstation may be less secure because you might do online shopping on it, you might browse videos on it, and inadvertently the risk factor would be higher on a personal machine versus an office one where they actually regulate what you can and cannot install. But when you switch to work from home and you're suddenly expected to do your official duties from a machine that is less than secure, then you leave the field open for cyber criminals to come in and manipulate in various ways and misdirect you in various ways to let go of your company information, your personal information, your financial information, or give big damage to your corporate networks as well, as we have seen in Sri Lanka as well as globally.
But in Sri Lanka, how do you ascertain the situation?
It was the same. There were a few high-profile instances where corporates were breached. This is because that employees were using home connections and home PCs.
What does cyber extortion mean? Why is data so valuable? Who wants our data, and what kind of data is at risk?
In this connected world, your data has become the commodity. The importance of personal data has assumed leaps and bounds importance, and there's actually a dollar value that is your social media, your financial data, so on and so forth, or your machine itself. Sometimes the RAM and the processing power of your machine might be used for other nefarious activities or to launch attacks on other states or corporates or entities. That is sort of why your data is important, why your security is important. Cyber extortion and crimes related to cyberspace has taken on a different entity altogether. Cybercrime has changed leaps and bounds where there are entities that do cybercrime as a service. They will actually do that as a transaction. And that is why your data and your personal information is vital, because we are getting connected as world and everything is moving to a digital space. Every action generates a piece of data that can be used, that can be extorted, commercialized and sold on the dark web for a dollar value. Let me give you an example. If somebody find out your credit card information, you can sell it in the dark web for about $50. Suddenly, your inconspicuous piece of data assumes a commercial importance. So suddenly you have this demand and supply in cybercrime as well. When data is the oil, the user is the commodity. And that is what we must remember.
We've been talking about a cybersecurity bill, and it has been at a ready stage for a long time. In the absence of laws, what do we do?
Absolutely, laws are critical because the environment of cybercrime, data privacy, these issues keep evolving daily. Right now there is a vacuum in our legal system for that, and this is why acts like the Cybersecurity Act needs to come. It's timely, it's required, and at least it's a first step to start to get cybersecurity going, because part of the act talks about having security officers, or what we call CISOs, in state institutions. A person, a point of contact in charge of cybersecurity. And how are we going to tackle cross-border cyber attacks? I know we have signed already as a country the Budapest Convention, but do we have the adequate laws to deal with that? If there's a ransomware attack on a state entity, how are we going to deal with them? So these are some of the open points in our laws. So currently we need a cybersecurity law, a very strong bedrock of that, and we need a data protection law. Both of them have been, again, still in the bill stage, and I urge the new parliament, once elections are concluded, that they take this matter as a pressing matter and get these acts passed.
I stress on the elections because we have seen several instances, be it the Easter attacks, communal violence, or as simple as the COVID-19 question of burial versus cremation. We saw communal disharmony brewing up simply due to fake news or misinformation. How do we take responsibility here as individuals?
Governments, Facebook, and several other stakeholders really need to ramp up and do their part. But you and me as individuals, we need to educate ourselves also. And my simple advice is, take the conversation offline.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, leader of the United National Party and former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that people selected Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the president since people lost faith in the government of good governance established in 2015. Addressing district representatives of the party, the UNP leader added that the party is confident of conducting an election campaign while keeping the spread of COVID-19 at bay.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපිට අර්බුද වලට මුහුණ දෙන්න තිබුණා. මේ පළවෙනි වතාවේ නෙමෙයි. අපි ඡන්ද පෙරදිලා 8කට ගිහින් තියෙනවා. ආපහු 140කින් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඒ හැම එකේම පළපුරුද්දක් අපිට තියෙනවා. මේ පක්ෂය කාලෙන් කාලයට වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන් පක්ෂයක්. 2015 කණ්ඩායම එකතු කරගෙන අපි ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුවක් ඇති කරා. ඒත් ඒ යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුවේ සමහරගේ ක්‍රියාකලාපේ නිසා ඒ කෙරේ ජනතාව තියෙන විශ්වාසය නැති වුණා. කොච්චර දුරට විශ්වාසය කඩාවැටුණාද කිව්වොත් ගිය ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී ඒ ජනතාව අන්තිමට තෝරාගත්තේ කිසිම දේශපාලනයකට සම්බන්ධ නොවුන පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ දේශපාලනය නොකරපු ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ. දැන් මේ රාජපක්ෂ පාලනය කෙරෙහි ජනතාවගේ විශ්වාසය අඩු වෙලා නැති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් සම්පූර්ණ දේශපාලන ක්‍රමය ගැන ජනතාවගේ විශ්වාසය නැති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි පරණ අය වාගෙම ඊටත් වඩා අලුත් අය දාලා තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් මේ පක්ෂය අතුරෙන් අලුත්ම මූණවල් වැඩියෙන්ම තියෙන්නේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය. ඇයි මේ රටේ තරුණ තරුණියන්ට විශ්වාසය නැති වුණේ අපි කෙරෙහිත් අනික් දේශපාලන පක්ෂ ක්‍රමෙත් අපි පිළිගන්න ඕන ඒක සිදු වුණේ අපේ අඩුපාඩු ගන්න නිසා. ඒවා පිළි අරගෙන අපි වැඩ කරන්න ඉන්නේ. අපි කොරෝනා උවදුර මතක තියාගෙන ඒක පැතිරෙන්නේ නැති විදිහට අලුත් විදිහකට ජනතාවට හානි නොවන විදිහකට අපිට මේ ඡන්ද ව්‍යාපාරික යෙදෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලාත් අපි පෙන්වන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
The police constable attached to the State Intelligence Service who had a hand in foiling the recent heist attempted at the Colombo National Hospital passed away this morning. He had been receiving treatment at the intensive care unit at the hospital following a traffic collision on Thursday.
2 police officers who were on a motorcycle were hit by a jeep on Thursday night in the area of Tumulla, and the incident was caught on surveillance cameras installed nearby. Sustaining serious injuries owing to the incident, the 2 police officers were rushed to the National Hospital in Colombo, and one of them succumbed earlier today. The deceased is identified as 22 years old constable named Situmdulika Yomal Alhapperuma. He was one of the 2 constables attached to the State Intelligence Service who gave chase and prevented the recent heist of 7.9 million rupees at the National Hospital in Colombo. He is the youngest of a family of 2 siblings in area of Valikanda of Polonnaruwa. The other officer who sustained severe injuries to his legs is still under treatment. The magisterial inquest and the post-mortem of the deceased constable were conducted today. Police spokesperson SP Jalia Senaratna said that the driver of the jeep involved in the traffic collision has been arrested and was remanded until tomorrow after being produced before court. According to police investigations, the suspect is a 24-year-old law student and had been under the influence of alcohol at the time of the incident. Further investigations into the incident are currently underway.
The final rites of the chairman of Self-Employed Professionals ThreeWheel Association, late Sunil Jayawardena, was held this afternoon at the public cemetery in Casbaba. Various public representatives paid their last respects to late Jayawardena at his residence before the funeral. His remains were brought to the cemetery after religious observances were performed at his residence. The 53-year-old was assaulted to death last Wednesday by employees of an unregistered leasing company in public. He had visited the entity to discuss about the injustice inflicted upon a 3-wheeler driver by the company. The company has seized the vehicle of the 3-wheeler driver at a time the government had suspended the recovery of leasing installments from 3-wheeler owners for a period of 6 months. 8 people were arrested in connection to the incident, and they are remanded until the 25th of June on charges of unlawful assembly and murder. Furthermore, they are to be produced for an identification parade on the 25th of June. Now, a sudden fire has erupted in the public market in Cagle this evening. The fire occurred in the upper floor of the market complex. Several fire trucks were deployed to douse the flames. Security forces and the Cagle Municipal Council worked together to control the raging fire. Many shops in the complex sustained damages. China's automobile production and sales both posted double-digit growth in May, and the production of automobiles reached 2.187 million units in May, up 18.2% year-on-year. The automobile sales reached 2.194 million in the month, up 14.5% year-on-year. The sales volume of passenger cars reached 1.609 million units in May, showing both month-on-month and year-on-year growth, up 12.6% and 1.8% respectively for the first month in 11 months. The commercial vehicle market, meanwhile, also continued its strong performance in May after sales of heavy-duty trucks increased by 550% year-on-year in the first 4 months of this year. Sri Lankan shares ended slightly lower last Friday as losses in the industrial sector outweighed gains in consumer staples stocks. However, the index notched a gain in the last week of trading. Experts say that the buying interest which prevailed in the past week among locals are also expected in the upcoming week. With that, let's now take a look at what we can expect in the market during the week ahead.
With the interest rates coming down, most investors are looking at the equity market, especially locals, as it being an alternative investment option. So we are seeing a lot of cash being transferred into equity investments. With that, we are seeing a lot of local demand into the market, especially in this depressed period where stock prices are extremely low. So we are seeing a lot of buying interest among locals, so we are expecting that trend to continue and even improve in the coming days as well. Retail investors are most likely to be the ones that are in the market, with the high net worth also coming in. We are expecting buying interest to remain in mostly the blue chip counters, especially concentrating on the banking sector. However, there could be some interest in the selected mid-cap counters as well. Foreigners are likely to be continuous on the selling side. That has been the global trend where most foreign investors are moving into safe havens. So we have seen significant foreign outflows from the emerging markets.
We will see you shortly after this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, amidst the ongoing protests over the killing of African Americans in the United States, triggered by the recent death of George Floyd, a fresh unrest erupted in the city of Atlanta as 27-year-old Rashad Brooks was shot by a police officer during a struggle. Atlanta's police chief has resigned after the fatal shooting of Brooks, who had fallen asleep in his car at a drive-through restaurant, and the service of the police officer who fatally shot Brooks has also been terminated.
Amid global outrage over the death of George Floyd, an African-American in U.S. police custody, yet another black man was fatally shot by a police officer during an arrest. Atlanta police have now released bodycam and dashcam video showing the moments leading to the fatal shooting of Rashad Brooks at a fast food restaurant's parking lot in Atlanta. Police have been called to the scene after complaints of a man asleep at the wheel near the Wendy's drive-through line.
All right, so put your hands behind your back for me. Here, put your hands behind your back.
The new killing intensified protests against racism and police brutality as protesters in Atlanta took to the streets this weekend, calling for action following Brooks' death. Last evening, demonstrators closed down a major highway in Atlanta, and the Wendy's restaurant outside which Brooks died was also set on fire. Over the past 3 weeks, people across the US have been protesting over the death of George Floyd, who died after a police officer knelt on Floyd's neck. The service of the police officer who shot dead Brooks has been terminated, and the police chief of Atlanta City too resigned over the matter.
While there may be debate as to whether this was an appropriate use of deadly force, I firmly believe that there is a clear distinction between what you can do and what you should do. I do not believe that this was a justified use of deadly force and have called for the immediate termination of the officer. Chief Shields has offered to immediately step aside as police chief so that the city may move forward with urgency in rebuilding the trust so desperately needed throughout our communities.
Meanwhile, lawyers representing the family of Rashad Brooks told reporters yesterday that Atlanta police had no right to use deadly force even if he had fired a taser, a non-lethal weapon, in their direction.
In Georgia, a taser is not a deadly weapon. That's the law. That's what the cops are trained to do. It's not a deadly weapon. I've had cases where officers have used tasers on victims and they argue with us in court that tasers aren't deadly, that tasers aren't harmful. That's the case law here, that tasers are not deadly weapons. So before we even hear from their lawyers, who are going to say the same old thing they always say, you cannot have it both ways. You can't say he ran off with a weapon that could kill somebody when you say it's not deadly.
A pharmaceutical giant has made a deal with Europe's Inclusive Vaccines Alliance to supply up to 400 million doses of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine to Germany, France, Italy and the Netherlands. Meanwhile, amidst many COVID-19 cases being reported from the United States, President Donald Trump plans to rally supporters in Oklahoma next Saturday. The move has come under the scrutiny of experts who are of the opinion that this move could spark an outbreak of the virus.
After months away from the campaign trail, US President Donald Trump plans to rally his supporters next Saturday for the first time since most of the country was shuttered by the coronavirus. Trump will head to Tulsa, Oklahoma, a state that has seen relatively few COVID-19 cases. But health experts question the decision, citing the danger of infection spreading among the crowd and sparking outbreaks when people return to their homes. The US currently accounts for over 2.1 million infections and over 117,000 fatalities. Meanwhile, in Europe, Britain's Finance Minister Rishi Sunak said that the government will review its 2-meter social distancing rule as a matter of urgency as it tries to help the country's economy recover from a 25% collapse after the onset of the coronavirus crisis. Sunak said progress in tackling the spread of COVID-19 meant the country was able to take a fresh look at the 2-meter rule, which many employees have said will make it harder for them to get back up to speed after the coronavirus lockdown. Chinese health authorities meanwhile say that it received reports of 57 new confirmed COVID-19 cases on the Chinese mainland yesterday, of which 38 were domestically transmitted and 19 were imported. The National Health Commission said in its daily report that Chinese capital city Beijing reported 36 of the 38 domestically transmitted cases, while the other 2 were from northeast China's Liaoning province. The overall confirmed cases on the mainland had reached 83,133, including 129 patients who were still being treated. Altogether, 78,369 people had been discharged after recovery and 4,634 people had died of the disease. In the meantime, pharma giant AstraZeneca has struck a deal with Europe's Inclusive Vaccines Alliance to supply up to 400 million doses of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. According to media reports, the alliance forged by Germany, France, Italy and the Netherlands is set to take delivery by the end of 2020 of a vaccine being tested by the University of Oxford. The agreement struck yesterday aims to make the vaccine available to other European countries that wish to take part.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.